I'm Ange Fitzgerald and I'm one of the board members at ASERA, and I'm here with Professor Deb Corrigan. Deb, to really speak about what ASERA means to you, Deb. But before we get there, it'd be really great to hear about your research and the things that keep you busy in science education.
Okay, so my research, I've probably been in science education for research for about 30 years. So it has shifted and changed, but there is something that has remained constant in all of that time, and I suppose my driving goal is to make science education relevant to kids, and that often doesn't happen in my opinion. And that's taken different forms so across that period of time. So I've done some work around teaching science in context, Science Technology Society. I've always been strongly aligned to curriculum and what the curriculum has to say or intends to say about those learning experiences. And more recently, I suppose I've moved into the policy area, particularly, well, I'm a chemist, so chem education, science education, and more recently STEM education, which has been really interesting because more recently my work's been about the values underpinning different disciplines, and so that's been interesting to move that sort of work into the STEM and the STEM policy area. So that's sort of my 30-year career in about 2-second pitch. Yeah,
and I'm sure a few of those things have been brought up at ASERA conferences in the time.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I think one of the interesting things about ASERA for me, though, is that it's always been pretty strong in the chemistry area. So I've always been able to sort of go back and sort of reacquaint myself with chemistry every time I think I'm drifting away from it. So it's been a really good opportunity for me to sort of re-engage with what's the grassroots of what interested me to start with. So I think that's really interesting.
And that would be really energising, because I imagine a whole bunch of new people would be coming and have come through during that time.
I hate doing these sort of things because I realise how old I've got. But I suppose my first ASERA was in 1991 in Surfers Paradise. It was the first time I think it had been in a hotel. And I distinctly remember, I have this image, of climbing up the stairs of the Aluka Hotel, which is not there anymore, I've got to say, on the foreshore at Surfers Paradise, climbing into a tiny little room in the hotel to listen to Steve Ritchie talk about, I think, analogies or metaphors.
Oh, really?
And so, it's just such a prominent memory and that I still remember that to this day. And the only other thing I remember from 1991 is that, of course, it was only the Victorians and the New Zealanders who were swimming in the beach at that point in time. And that's where I met Malcolm Carr, who was a chemistry educator from New Zealand. So we were the only two people swimming. So, who you meet is also a fundamentally important part. So
for sure. I love that you pick up that informal aspect of ASERA there, Deb, because I think that's a massive part of it. The person you meet at the beach or having a coffee in the shop down the road or... I suppose I also really like ASERA. I love it because, I go to international conferences and I sometimes am sitting there and thinking, I've been on a 28-hour trip to get there for a 15-minute presentation. And there's about 5 minutes of talk. So I love ASERA because everybody, whoever you are, gets 20 minutes for a presentation and 20 minutes of discussion. Exactly.
And I know over the period of time I've probably been a bit braver about what I've done at ASERA. I've certainly taken some risks. I think one year I did a paper with Mandy Berry and John Loughran, and it was a real risk. I think the title was Once for Science Teachers, and we were presenting it in New Zealand. So that was a bit of a challenge, but I love the fact that the ASERA community were up for it. They were always up and respond constructively to whatever you do. So, it's challenging, but you can put the ideas out there and you can be brave. And so I think it's sort of also about being brave and trying those different things all the time.
Thanks, Deb. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the value of ASERA for you and why it matters?
Well, I suppose it really matters to me because it starts to showcase the really fantastic science research that Australia, New Zealand and this region really, the Asia Pacific region do. And it also gives it a voice when it often doesn't have a voice, because I find from my perspective, it's a very jaundiced perspective probably, that there's a formula for presenting at things like the American, NAST, and there's a formula at ASERA. And the thing I love about ASERA is that, we're brave. We'll engage with different approaches, we'll engage with different sorts of research, and there's no real formula for doing it. And I just really want to encourage that moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
thanks for that, Deb.
Thanks, Ange.
Thanks for your time.